All right, so we're back for another CoinTalk Podcast deep dive. And today we're going to be looking at Bitcoin ETFs.
Okay.
Specifically, we've got this article from trcrypto.news. Bitcoin ETFs continue to see outflows as BTC briefly dips below 95K.
Huh.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, there's a lot of money moving around in the Bitcoin ETF space.
Yeah.
And we'll take a look at what that might mean. So,
Sounds good.
first off, for anyone who's new to this whole world, can you give us a quick rundown of like what a Bitcoin ETF is and why someone would want to invest in one?
Yeah, sure. So a Bitcoin ETF is basically a way to get exposure to Bitcoin without actually owning the Bitcoin directly. So you're
Right.
buying shares of this fund and the fund holds the Bitcoin. So it's a little bit more accessible to some people because they can trade it on a regular stock exchange.
Yeah, so less hassle than going through setting up wallets and all that.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So now let's talk about these outflows. The article mentions that spot Bitcoin ETFs saw $56.76 million in net outflows on February 11th. And this follows even larger outflows the day before, totaling $186.28 million. So what's going on here? Are people starting to get spooked?
Well, I think, the price of Bitcoin, as we all know, can be quite volatile. And it recently dipped below 100,000. And so I think that's probably a big factor in why we're seeing these outflows.
Okay, makes sense. So people see the price dip and they get a little nervous. But is that the whole story, or is there something else going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably also some macroeconomic factors at play. Interest rates are rising, inflation is still a concern. So that's making people a little more risk averse in general.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So kind of a ripple effect from the wider financial world. The article also points out that Fidelity's FBTC led the outflows for the second day, with $43.63 million leaving the fund. It goes on to mention some other big players like Franklin Templeton's EZBC, Invesco Galaxy's BTCO, Bitwise's BITB, and WisdomTree's BTCW. Is this a sign that investors are like losing faith in certain ETFs or even in Bitcoin as a whole?
I don't think so. I think it's important to keep in mind that the overall Bitcoin ETF market is still very large.
Okay.
And, these outflows are significant, but they're not necessarily a sign that everyone is abandoning ship.
No.
It could just be that some investors are rebalancing their portfolios, or they're just reacting to the short-term price movements,
Gotcha.
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see these individual ETFs and what their performance is and what that might tell us about overall sentiment. Don't forget to subscribe to CoinTalk Podcast on YouTube for more deep dives into the world of crypto, where we break down complex topics like this into easy-to-understand insights. Hit that like button and leave a comment telling us which ETFs you're keeping an eye on. So amidst all of these outflows, though, there is a fascinating anomaly that we need to talk about: BlackRock. Right. So while everyone else is seemingly heading for the exits, BlackRock's IBIT is attracting investors like crazy. The article mentions they brought in $23.8 million in inflows. Yeah. And even more impressive, IBIT has seen over $40 billion in net inflows since its launch. So what is going on with that? What's their secret sauce?
Yeah, that's a great question. BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager, so they have a lot of clout. And I think that their involvement in the Bitcoin ETF space is seen by a lot of investors as a sign of legitimacy. That Bitcoin is here to stay and that it's a viable investment. So I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing so much interest in IBIT.
So maybe a combination of BlackRock's kind of brand power and it's the fact that they're really good at what they do.
Exactly. Yeah, they're very savvy investors.
That makes sense.
So
what makes BlackRock's approach different, though? Like, what are they doing that maybe these other funds aren't doing?
Well, one thing that's different about BlackRock is that they're known for taking a very long-term view.
Okay.
So they're not really fazed by these short-term price fluctuations. They're looking at the big picture.
Interesting.
And they believe that Bitcoin has a lot of potential in the long run.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And while some investors are kind of spooked by this recent dip, BlackRock might be seeing it as a buying opportunity. Yeah, if you're enjoying this deep dive into Bitcoin ETFs, make sure you hit that subscribe button on CoinTalk Podcast and share this episode with your friends who are curious about the crypto world. Let's spread the knowledge.
Yeah.
Now, while I've been laser focused on Bitcoin ETFs, there's another big player in the crypto space that we can't ignore: Ethereum. And the story there is very different.
Yeah, that makes
sense. So let's dive into the world of Ethereum ETFs and see what's happening over there.
Sounds good.
Okay. So
yeah.
So Ethereum ETFs, they're actually seeing inflows. The article says that they had a net inflow of $12.58 million on February 11th.
Wow. So it's like two completely different stories going on here.
Yeah.
You've got the Bitcoin ETFs kind of facing some headwinds, and then Ethereum ETFs are actually attracting investors. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. It's tempting to just say, oh, well, Bitcoin's price is down. That's why people are pulling out of Bitcoin ETFs.
Right.
But
the fact that Ethereum ETFs are seeing inflows suggests that there's something else going on.
so it's not just a simple case of people fleeing crypto. It
Yeah.
seems like there's a shift maybe happening.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, and I think there's a few reasons for that. Ethereum has been making a lot of progress lately, especially with the development of its ecosystem and the transition to Ethereum 2.0.
Right. Yeah, we've talked about that a lot on CoinTalk Podcast. And it seems like investors are taking notice.
Yeah, definitely. And I think
It's exciting to see those innovations and how they're changing the landscape.
Ah.
If you're interested in diving deeper into Ethereum and the tech behind it, make sure to check out our other videos on CoinTalk Podcast on YouTube.
Yeah, and I think investors are also attracted to Ethereum's potential in areas like DeFi and NFTs, which have just exploded in popularity.
Yeah, for sure. Ethereum's really versatile.
Yeah.
It's a platform for all these new technologies.
Yeah,
So I can see why investors would be excited about that.
absolutely. So let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture. We talked earlier about institutional investment. And the article mentions that Goldman Sachs significantly increased its holdings in both Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs in Q4 of 2024.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, we've talked before about institutions getting to crypto, but this seems like a pretty big signal.
Yeah, I think it shows that institutional interest is really growing.
What do you think this tells us about how traditional finance is viewing crypto now?
Well, I think it shows that they're starting to take it seriously. Goldman Sachs is not known for making risky bets.
Right.
So the fact that they're investing in crypto ETFs suggests that they see it as a legitimate asset class.
That's a big deal.
Right.
For so long, crypto was seen as this fringe asset,
Right.
but now you have some of the biggest names in finance putting their money into it.
Yeah, and I think that could lead to greater stability and maturity in the crypto market.
That would be great. I mean, remember how we were talking about those price swings? Maybe with more institutional involvement, we'll see less of that.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, the crypto market is still relatively young and there are always surprises. But the fact that these institutions are getting involved suggests that they see a future for crypto.
Yeah, that's why we love doing these deep dives here on CoinTalk Podcast. We get to explore these trends, analyze the data, and try to understand what it all means. If you're enjoying this conversation, make sure to subscribe to CoinTalk Podcast on YouTube and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our future episodes. We've got tons more coming your way, exploring everything from DeFi and NFTs to the metaverse and Web3. So now let's shift gears a bit and talk about what all of this means for individual investors. If someone's watching this and thinking, okay, I'm interested in crypto ETFs, what are some key takeaways they should keep in mind?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the most important thing is to do your research.
Okay.
Crypto is still a volatile asset class, and ETFs don't eliminate that risk.
So don't just jump into crypto ETFs because you heard BlackRock is doing it.
Yeah.
Make sure you understand the fundamentals.
Exactly. And remember, there are different types of crypto ETFs. Some track the price of a single cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin, while others hold a basket of crypto assets.
Right.
So you need to think about your investment goals and your risk tolerance when you're choosing an ETF.
Diversification is always a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So those are some great tips for individual investors. So given all the trends that we've discussed, how should investors be thinking about Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs right now? Like, should they be bullish or bearish? What's your take?
Well, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
There's no one-size-fits-all answer. But I think the important thing is to remember that the landscape is constantly evolving. We're seeing more institutional interest, exciting developments in the Ethereum ecosystem, and just a growing awareness of crypto as an asset class. So it's a really exciting time to be following this space.
For sure. It definitely is. And that's what we're all about here at CoinTalk Podcast. We break down these complex topics, explore the latest trends, and help you navigate the crypto world.
Exactly. So if you're looking to stay ahead of the curve and learn more about crypto, blockchain technology, and the future of finance, make sure to subscribe to CoinTalk Podcast on YouTube and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming deep dives.
Yeah, we love hearing from our viewers too. So drop a comment below and tell us what you think about the future of Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. Are you bullish, bearish, or somewhere in between? Let's start a conversation. Okay, so welcome back to CoinTalk Podcast. It's the final part of our deep dive into Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. And wow, we've covered a lot of ground. We talked about those interesting outflows, the BlackRock anomaly, the rise of Ethereum ETFs, and of course, the growing presence of institutional investors. What a ride.
It has been a lot to unpack, but I think we've gotten a good sense of how these trends are all connected.
Yeah, for sure. So let's shift gears now and talk about you, the viewer. If you're thinking about investing in crypto ETFs, what are some key takeaways you should keep in mind?
Well, I think the first thing to remember is that crypto is still a relatively new asset class.
Yeah.
And it can be very volatile. So even though you're investing in an ETF, you're not eliminating that risk entirely.
Yeah, definitely do your research. Don't just jump in because you heard BlackRock is doing it. You really want to understand the fundamentals of Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Absolutely. And you also want to understand the different types of crypto ETFs, because there are some that track just one cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin, and others that hold a basket of different cryptos.
Right, like a diversified approach.
Exactly. So you got to think about your investment goals and how much risk you're comfortable with.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And then another thing to consider is the expense ratio.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure. That's the annual fee that the ETF provider charges.
Yeah, you want to keep an eye on those fees.
Absolutely. It can really eat into your returns over time if you're not careful.
So given everything we've talked about today, how do you think investors should be viewing Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs right now? Are you bullish? Are you bearish?
You know, it's really tough to say. There's no one right answer because everyone's situation is different. But I think the main takeaway is that the crypto landscape is changing really quickly. We're seeing a lot of institutional interest, exciting developments in the Ethereum ecosystem, and I think crypto is becoming more and more recognized as a legitimate asset class.
Yeah, it's definitely an exciting time to be in the crypto world. And that's what we're all about here at CoinTalk Podcast. We want to help you understand what's happening, break down these complex topics, and explore the latest trends.
Exactly. So if you want to stay ahead of the curve and learn more about crypto, blockchain technology, and the future of finance, make sure you subscribe to the CoinTalk Podcast on YouTube and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our future deep dives.
Yeah, we've got tons of great content coming your way. Everything from DeFi and NFTs to the metaverse and Web3. And we love hearing from our viewers, so drop a comment below and tell us what you think about the future of Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. Are you bullish, bearish? Or maybe somewhere in between? Let's keep the conversation going.
And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, do us a favor and share it with your friends who might be interested in learning more about crypto. The more the merrier.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And until next time, happy investing.